I'm Nate Eaton chatting with Keith Morrison from Dateline NBC. Keith, first of all, congratulations. 30 years, Dateline. Not a long time. Yeah. You have 30 seasons on TV.
Yeah. Here's the number one rule about Dateline, about television, about life in general. It goes fast. Keep that in mind.
Yeah. Have you been there all 30 years?
Well, I did some of the first, I was there before Dateline, and I did some of the first shows, but then I left and went out and did something else for a couple of years and then came back. So I've been, since I returned, it's been a little over 25 years. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you're one of the main reasons, maybe the main reason people watch.
No, nonsense.
And you've got a story that hits close to home for many of our viewers here in Idaho coming up on Friday called Kill Switch.
Quite a title, isn't it?
Yes. Tell me a little bit about this story. We're not talking about Lori Daybell, for those wondering, but another Lori.
We're talking about a Lori, yes. Lori Isenberg in this case. But this is a very unusual, kind of strange story about a character, really. This is a story about a very unusual character for whom it was tremendously important to be respected and liked, and especially to be respected by her husband and the love of her life, Larry. She was somebody who was looked up to in the community, who served on a nonprofit agency, who did good work for people who were looking to get into the housing market when it was even not quite as difficult as it is now, but still they're pretty difficult. And when a few unusual things were discovered in the books of this housing organization, things began to happen. The very day a report was going to come out in the local newspaper about Lori's situation with the nonprofit, there was an accident on the lake, a boating accident. And this occurred in February, mind you, when the temperature was about 17 degrees. But the love of her life fell out of the boat and went down to the bottom of Coeur d'Alene, apparently never to be recovered. And from there, this tale develops.
Yeah, we covered it on East Idaho News. I remember we covered when they were looking into the irregularities with the books. And then it was around Valentine's Day, as you mentioned, when her husband goes in the water. But they found his body loaded with Benadryl or
yeah, that's right. Some things you hold back in the story, Nate.
Yeah, okay. I shouldn't give it away.
That's quite all right. Yes, they found his body loaded up with Benadryl, with way more Benadryl with it than would harm somebody very seriously. We looked quite carefully into the question of whether or not that much Benadryl would kill a person. And that wasn't really the issue. The question was, would it allow someone else, someone smaller, someone, maybe who normally wouldn't take that person on, to control them completely and make them do anything he or she wanted them to do? And the answer was yes. There was possibly a plan that someone would go into the deepest part of the lake and therefore never rise to the surface again. But, the best laid murder plans don't always go the way they're intended to go.
One of the things I'm looking forward to about this show, Friday night on NBC, is you have an interview with Lori's daughter, who, yes, if I remember correctly, didn't she originally defend her mother when all of this was happening?
Yes, and they all did. I mean, this is also a story about how well do you know those closest to you? How well do you know your spouse? How well do you know your own mother? And if your mother tells you something which is maybe a little off, should you believe your mother, or should you check more thoroughly into what she has told you? There are a lot of lessons in this story.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Is there anything that surprised you? That's a tough question to ask a journalist who's been doing this for 30 years, because does anything surprise you anymore? But this particular case, anything stick out?
As things happened in this case, as revelations came out, each one would make me go, what? that happened. So yeah, there are remarkable things that happen in this story. And again, they come back to they always do. They come back to the things that make us human and the things that make us go off the rails in a human way.
Well, I have you. I do want to ask about one of the biggest cases in the country, Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie. Why do you think that particular case has garnished so much attention?
You know, I asked myself that very question. I don't know. Immediately everybody jumped on it. It was like a virus in the air. This occurred, and before any major news organizations did very much with it, social media had made it a huge story. It's almost like it just travels by remote control, and within a day, everybody in the country knows about it. And then the question became, why are you doing that story as opposed to a story about, not a pretty young white girl? And the fact is, we do stories about all kinds of people. I don't even know if we're going to do this Gabby Petito story, but there is a kind of it goes back, I think, to the Goldilocks myth or the Little Red Riding Hood myth. There is, in the stories human beings tell each other about missing young women. They're kind of central to the business of being human. And it's in those stories, it's usually a young blonde white girl who has, in trouble with the wolf or in danger or has been kidnapped or, Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah, well,
I think we find it very hard to get our minds out of those ancient myths and get to something that's more real.
Well, and when you have someone who has so many videos and photos out there easily accessible, the whole world can follow along and find out everything about her. You think that Brian Laundrie will be found?
Oh heavens, I have no idea. I'm sure is it possible to not find someone ever? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Keith, it's always a pleasure chatting with you, and we'll look forward to Friday night. Lori Isenberg, Kill Switch on Dateline NBC, and all of the many more stories you will tell this season.
Thanks a lot, Nate. It's good to talk to you as always.